Welcome to In the Black, where we celebrate stories of transformation, resilience, and rising into the life you were meant to live. I'm your host, Aracelli, and this space was created to amplify voices often overlooked. Women who've come through the fire with wisdom, strength, and heart. Whether you're here for healing, clarity, or just good conversation, you belong here. Let's get into it. Tina O'Keefe is a professional organizer who understands that clutter is rarely just about stuff. Through her own dark seasons and by walking alongside clients navigating grief, loss, and major life transitions, Tina has seen how emotional weight often manifests physically in our spaces. Her work is about more than organizing homes. It's about helping people release what no longer serves them, make peace with what they've been carrying, and rebuild their lives one intentional choice at a time. Today's conversation explores the powerful connection between healing and our environment and how clearing space can create room for something new. Welcome, Tina, to our podcast.
Hi, thank you so much. So nice to be here.
Yes, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. Please, Tina, introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about who Tina O'Keefe is.
So my name is Tina O'Keefe, and I'm a native New Yorker. I was born in Manhattan. I grew up in Queens, and I now live in Long Island. And I am married with three daughters and a dog. And I I will say, like, my career in terms of how I came to be, which, is a good way to kind of segue into like who I am and how I got to where I am, is I've been a writer my whole life. So I was a poet. Um, I wrote, short stories and first person essays. I was published quite a bit when I was younger. And that was, like my passion. And when I went to school, I studied English and communications with a concentration in marketing because in my life, like I wanted to go into advertising. I wanted to write jingles. I loved commercials when I was a kid growing up, so that was just something I really wanted to do. And then in my career, I went in. I ended up in public relations. I did a little bit of advertising writing, but not really. Mostly public relations, articles, and biographies and things like that for in the corporate space. My husband, when I met my husband, he and I decided to join the Peace Corps. So I went into the Peace Corps when I was first married, and we were there for 2.5 years. And there I did a lot of writing as well. I did a lot of grant writing, proposal writing. I wrote curriculums for different types of leadership programs for young people and things like that. And then I came back and I continued writing as a creative, I'm sorry, communications consultant for a software company, and on the side, I was doing copywriting, and that was kind of for fun. So I had like two jobs. Like I was working full time, and then I had this side job. And one of my clients sent me to a women's entrepreneurial conference in New York City. And at that conference, one of the speakers was an organizer, and she spoke about organizing briefly. And it's like a light bulb went off. I didn't know that that was something that you could do for a living. And so I approached her afterwards like a groupie, and I said, "Wow, I think you're so cool." And she was like, "Oh, are you interested in organizing?" Like we kind of got talking and we hit it off, and I met with her a few times and she vetted me, and then she said, "If you're interested, you could come work for me." So I was working full time as a consultant. I was working, also doing some freelance writing, and then on the weekends, I was doing organizing, and I loved it. I thought it was just great. But, it's just like my life got too complicated. I started having a family. I couldn't sustain three jobs. So I let the organizing go. And then fast forward, I was laid off from my consulting job and I wanted to figure out, I had three small kids at home. I needed to figure out what I was going to do. And my husband said, "What is your plan?" And I said, "I love this freelance writing, but it's not something that I just never feel like I'm getting compensated for my time, the time that I put into it. My time is very valuable because I'm a mom, and I really need something that's just going to kind of do both, you know, that I'll find satisfaction and that I can kind of make a living at it." And I didn't think I can go back to being a consultant because I just didn't have like that kind of time to invest. Like I didn't have, I couldn't, leave the kids. So my husband was like, "Well, what about the organizing? You love that, and you're good at it." And so I said, maybe I should give it a try. So I decided to start my own organizing business, and I had kind of already knew a little bit about it, And so I got it going, and I never that was in 2013, and I never looked back.
That's so awesome. Wow, what a wild journey. Okay, when you're saying organizing in my head, you're saying writing and writing poetry and doing all this like crazy out of my world things. So maybe it's not crazy to you, but it's more natural to you. But you're saying organizing. I'm thinking closet organizing. I'm thinking space decluttering organizing. But then I was like, wait, am
Mhm.
I wrong? Are you like helping people organize their thoughts? Am I on the right track with thinking you're organizing closets and
Well, as a
spaces?
professional organizer, I organize, typically I'm decluttering people's homes. So in the very basic sense of like, you hire me to, if, I say to people, I work with clients who are preparing to move, recovering from a move, or who want to stay where they are and be happier and healthier in their space. So that I kind of deal with all aspects of what happens in a home, whether you're leaving it, you're coming into it, or you want to stay there and you need to make some serious changes. And that usually manifests in the physical stuff, opening up the closets, taking everything out, purging, like making decisions. Are you going to keep this? Are you not going to keep it? Do you need it? Etc. Like asking them those tough questions. What ends up happening is that inevitably the stuff is linked to a lot of different emotions, especially if people are moving, but if people are going through a life change, like if the reason why I'm there is because they're older and they need to have someone live with them because they can't live alone anymore, or they're moving because they can't stay where they are, they have to downsize, or they've just moved and they're like full of emotion. And a lot of times it is organizing people's thoughts, their lives, what are your, a lot of it is wrapped up in like, well, what is your goal? What do you want to accomplish? What are you trying to do here? And that, that will help us define what happens to your stuff. If you're changing careers and we're going through your closet, like, do you really need these types of clothes anymore? What are you going to be doing from now on? What is the more appropriate type of attire that you need for that career? So it is inextricably linked, and a lot of times people are like, oh, you used to be a writer and now you're an organizer, and how do you link those two? And I kind of say, like, I think organizing is like storytelling. Like I'm your copywriter, I'm your copy editor, so I'm here to tell your story. And we want to edit out all of the bad stuff and the trash and the stuff you don't need anymore, the stuff that doesn't serve you, and we want to display all the great things about your life, your successes, the books you love, the music you love to listen to, the places you've gone, and the things that you've collected. And that's what we want to see. So I help people tell their story in a nicer way than, we get rid of all the extra stuff they don't need.
Oh, I love that. That is just a wonderful way to put it. And I might need your help. I don't get rid of stuff because I'm practical. I'm like, I'm gonna need it for some event and I don't want to go out and buy it. And sure enough, it was like an 80s theme and I had like this weird swimsuit that I used as like a workout attire, one piece. And I was like, see, if I would have gotten rid of it, I would have had to buy another one. But I'm sure there's other things that I can definitely get rid of. Okay, so you had said you liked writing jingles. Was there anything that you can share that you wrote a jingle on any time in your life that was pretty special?
I mean, I used to write like fake commercials all the time, and I will not put you through that torture of my little songs. So
Big commercials like for play?
like, if we were traveling somewhere and the place had a cool name, I might be like, I might make up like a little stupid song about it just to. I make up a lot of songs. Like when my kids were young, and when I was young too, I would make up songs to help me remember things. Like when I was studying for tests and stuff, I would have like little games and tricks and songs that I would sing. And so I kind of would do that with my kids too. Like even my phone number, I remember making it into a song when my kids were little so that they would remember it in case anything ever happens. The only phone number that they actually now remember, because we don't have a house phone anymore. They're all teenagers, and but like if they lose their phones, like they call me because I'm the only phone number they remember.
How cool. That is so awesome. Before you ever became a professional organizer, you experienced your own dark seasons. What was happening in your life then?
Well, before I became an organizer, I was a writer, and I think that I was frustrated with a career where, I mean, I still love to write, obviously. it's really a wonderful outlet, but I felt like in terms of a career, I wasn't being compensated for the amount of time that I was putting into a creative project. And so it was like an endless cycle of not really being fulfilled, um, constantly dealing with like cycles and cycles of editing. And it just got to the point where I just felt like this is not going to be the thing that's going to inspire my passion for the rest of my life. Like I need to find something different. So definitely that was my kind of just like, dark time where I had been laid off from a job in consulting where I was being compensated for my time. I had little kids at home. I didn't have a whole lot of time. And I really wanted to find something that was fulfilling and that I felt like was going to, you know, compensate me also. And so I was trying to find something that was also flexible. I had, a growing family, and so not every job is flexible in that regard either. So that's how I came into organizing.
When did you first notice the connection between emotional pain and physical clutter, either in yourself or in your clients?
I think when I started my business, I thought that I was going to be organizing for other busy moms like me. That was like my idea, my big idea. And what ended up happening was I approached moms outside of school, and I told them like, "Oh, I'm starting this organizing business, and I'd like to organize a room in your house for free in exchange for before and after pictures." And they told me, absolutely not. No way. I would never let you like go into my house. And when I think about it, like at the time I was like destroyed. I was like, I can't even give this away for free. This is the stupidest business. Like, why did I ever think that this was a good idea? And then I realized, like, 10 years, well, this was now 13 years ago. There weren't a lot organizing wasn't what it is today in terms of being like fun and artsy and like kind of part of design in a way. Like people love to like reorganize and like design, and it wasn't like that. The show on TV was Hoarders, and there was probably like a little bit of shame around it. So like what I was offering was like embarrassing to people. Like I wouldn't want you to see my mess. And but all those conversations usually ended in, who could really use your help, like my mom, my dad, my aunt, my uncle. It was always like they were pushing me to the older people in the community. And what I started realizing was that there are a lot of older people where I live, and they are in these big houses. They raised a family, and their family's now gone, and they kind of want to change. They maybe don't want to live there anymore, or they just it's not safe for them to live there anymore because they have too much stuff, and they physically can't help it anymore. They can't like move things or clean out things because they don't have the physical energy, or they have like some kind of physical challenges, and there's a lot of emotion wrapped up in it. If they've lost a spouse or a child, or gone through any kind of trauma, a lot of those things are represented by their stuff. And so getting rid of items is really hard because they're holding on to it to fill like a void that they have inside. And that's something that people write about it all the time, but it's like I learned it, but I just saw it all the time. I saw like, you have all this paper, like, can we just throw it away? And it's like, no, 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 you can't, because that, I don't know, there's something there that I need. And it was like, it was really hard to get people to let go of things. And I realized like how emotionally tied up they are with all of these items, and how those items sometimes really do represent like something very dark or very meaningful, and that we have to be a little bit more creative in finding ways for them to let things go, because eventually like you can't keep everything. The organizer does not come in to throw away your life. They just want you to make choices. Like, you can't keep everything, so let's prioritize the things that are important to you, and then let's get rid of the things that aren't, so that we can make space. I don't know if that
Mm,
answers your question.
it was awesome. It's so true though. This is an embarrassing story. When my husband and I moved in, we had like an extra spare bedroom that we just tossed our combining things together. And we never touched it, and, like, it was a to-do thing. And then when his mom had passed away, we had to clean her house and discovered she's a hoarder, kept everything, and it was so difficult for all of us to clean it out because so much of it was just thrown away. And so the stuff that we ended up taking was just, like, a few little things here and there. She had, like, big on Christmas decorations and stuff, but we immediately went into that back room and got rid of so much stuff. My husband was just gung ho and like throwing everything in the trash instead of maybe organizing some things and throwing the rest in the trash, where he was throwing away, like, artwork that I had done as a kid or something, and I would be like, "No!" And I would cry because I was like, "Honey,
Aw.
you're older, like, what are you doing?" And he's like, "No, it's trash. When are you ever gonna use this?" And so it was kind of deciphering what was trash and what was not.
Yeah. Yeah, it is eye-opening when you have to do it for somebody else. It does make you realize. I mean, I also one part of my business is doing estate cleanouts, and, someone's passed and I have to go in there because maybe the family lives too far away, or there may not be anyone else, they don't have any living relatives who'll do this for them. So I do it, and I am kind of like the last sometimes I'm the last person who's going to look and touch these things, and so I kind of like pay attention a little bit, because I'm sort of like, well, like I'm the last person, so I have to like say goodbye to these things. And I do. And I try to donate as much as I can. I mean, that's kind of the other part of my business, which is that I don't throw things away if I can avoid it. If it's usable, I try to find a charity to donate it to. And I do a ton of donating. And that makes it a little bit like lighter because it's like, well, someone else is going to make use of this these clothes. Animal shelters can use like the sheets and blankets and towels, and there's just a lot of ways to distribute the items. So I do try to do that, but it is like really eye opening when you see like all the things like at the end, like you cannot take these things with you, so they are going to just go. So I always try to tell people when you can, if you have the time and the ability, if you want to give these things to someone, then and when it's in your power to do so, you should. And that's like really important because when you die, like people don't always know what the important things are and the non-important the things are, the valuable things and the non. Like it's not always that clear. Why did you keep this thing? And maybe it has a great story and it has meaning, and you really should share that when you're alive and share like write it down, give it to somebody and say, this is why I'm giving this to you. It was given to me by my mother. Share those important moments so that all those things don't end up in the garbage, and then the rest of it that you don't need and that doesn't have that kind of meaning, just let it go.
Yeah. Oh, man. Definitely need you. More for clothes. I'm just, just bad at getting rid of clothes. All
Yeah,
right.
clothes are hard. Clothes also have emotional, like where you wore it, like memories you have with them, it's
Yeah. I'll
it's
fit back into them one day.
that's definitely
Like,
one too.
I have a sports bra collection that I was very excited about when in my 20s, and I like all the strappy sports bra. I'm like, yeah, I love them all. Like now I have like money to be able to purchase things. So I have like a basket full of these things. And in my 30s, mid 30s, I got a little bit depressed. My husband started working away, so we lived separately Monday through Friday, and we had like no
Mm.
family, no kids, anything. I got a little depressed, so I gained a little bit of extra insulation during that time, and so these sports bras don't fit me anymore, and now I'm trying to kind of lean back out, but yeah, they're starting to fit me. Some of them here and there. I'm like, okay, donate them or keep them. Donate them or keep them. Just
Right, right. But, it's significant to you because it's like it has a little bit to do with like how you feel about yourself and, like your body, and that's always a complicated thing with women in general, I find. But I do kind of feel like the things that you have are supposed to make you feel good, right? So if there's something that you have, and not necessarily this sports bras, but like in general, I always feel like if there's something you have that's making you feel sad or like frustrated or like guilty, people keep a lot of things because like so and so gave it to them and they're like, oh, I don't really like it, but I don't want to get rid of it because they gave it to me. And I'm like, they gave it to you because they thought it was going to make you happy. If it's not, just get rid of it. There's no need to keep it. And I kind of feel like sometimes I have clothes that I love and I like put them on and I have gained weight and it's like I look terrible. And I put it on, I feel like I feel terrible. I'm like, oh my God, this is like so awful. And then I'm like, why am I keeping this thing and torturing myself every like 3 months? I put it on, I'm like, oh, I look terrible. So I'm like, bye-bye. I have a bag hanging always like by my front door on a hook, and like I have trained my kids too. I'm like, if there's something that you have that you don't it's getting donated, put it in the bag because it's going, and then I don't have to deal with it. And I figure
Yeah,
if I lose weight, I will buy myself all new things, so that's great.
yeah. I started pulling out my old attire and people at the gym were like, "Oh, that is such a cute outfit." I'm like, "Thank you. I used to be known for these outfits, but I put it away for like 2 years because, it takes a long time to put the weight on. You just don't realize it.
Sure.
It
Yeah,
takes a long
yeah.
time to take that weight off, but I'm one of
Right.
those people like, I'm in the fitness industry, so I was always called the muscle, so I was always muscly and, like, lean, and so, like, putting on that extra insulation just made me look more bulky, and so I can't fit into
Mm.
those things, but now that I'm, like, starting to go back to that, I'm starting to pull some of them out, and they're like, "Oh, that's so cute." I'm like, "I know. Like, I know, it's just in my closet."
Well, that's great though. Good for you.
All right. Many people feel shame around clutter. Why do you think clutter is so deeply tied to guilt, grief, or feeling stuck?
Well, like we just talked about, a lot of times people get things from other people, either from they've inherited them from their families, like their parents, or their kids grow up and move away, and they are holding on to things that belong to their children. And I think it's just like it's the passage of time can sometimes make people really sad, and they're full of regret, or they just miss those old times, and they don't want to get rid of those things because they feel like if they do, it's like they're erasing that memory. So it's really important that, first of all, again, like I don't throw everything away when I'm working with somebody. Like if something is really that important to you, like we're not throwing this away. Like I'm not there to be like make you cry. Like it's terrible. I'm just there to say like if you care, if this thing is important to you and you care about it, why is it in a cardboard box in the basement on the floor where it could get wet kind of thing? It's like, all right, this is really important. Let's preserve these things the proper way, put them in the proper bins, put them on shelves. Like that's a big part of the process. It's like it's not about throwing everything away, but it's like getting rid of the stuff you don't want and then making sure the things that you do want are preserved properly. And then that creates like it creates respect for that memory. Like if you really care about this item, I really would like it to see it preserved, taken care of, prevented from like being like damaged or wet. And then like it, and also I love when things are in a place where they can be appreciated, so like putting them on display. And but these things, people get really caught up in the idea of them because they're like, oh, if I throw this away, it's like I'm throwing away the memory of this person, or I'm like trying to erase this memory. And it's like that's not, the memory is in your mind. It's like your memory is in your heart, it's not in the thing. The thing can remind you of it, it can be a trigger of it, but that's not where it doesn't reside in the thing. So, it's okay to get rid of the thing. An example of this is I had a client who, this was like one of my first clients, and she was a dog breeder. And so she was really into dogs, but she also, was obsessed with cats. Like she bred dogs, but like on the side, like she like was fascinated with cats. And so she didn't own any cats, but she had like magazines and like stuff around cats. And she had a storage area in her building in New York City. It was a big open room that she shared with other people, and her stuff was like on one side. And when we were going through the boxes, there was a lot of stuff related to like dog breeding and literature and stuff that she needs, supplies around that. But then there was a lot of stuff, there were like cat magazines, like catalogs and stuff that I was like, "Okay, this is a cat catalog from like, for cat products from like 1993. Like, I think, is it okay if we get rid of it?" And she was like, I can't, because I can't destroy pictures of cats. I feel like I'm hurting them. If I take a magazine, like, and I tear it or I throw it in the garbage, like, if there's a picture of a cat, like, I feel like I'm harming that animal. And so she turned to me and said, like, "Oh, you have kids. Like, I mean, could you ever throw away a picture of your kid?" And I'm like, I do it all the time. Like, because I don't know, my children are safe. So if I take a picture of my child and I tear it up, like I don't, it doesn't hurt my child. Like I know that my child is still okay. It's just an image of them. And I might have like 10 of them because they take school pictures, and I might have extra, and I keep a couple, but I throw out the rest. And so I'm like, I don't see the connection between the image and the person being harmed, or like the creature being harmed. And so we had a big talk about it. And I wasn't going to change her mind. I'm not a therapist. This was something she felt very strongly about. So we made a box and we kept those magazines in there, and we labeled it so that it wasn't in, and we pushed it to the side because I'm like, You're obviously never going to look at these again, but you just can't get rid of them." So we just kind of labeled it what it was and we put it aside. But people have very strong feelings about like they put very strong feelings into items, like images or just like collections, and you have to kind of navigate around that, and it could be because something traumatic happened, or it could just be because maybe something happy happened, and it's like that item really gives them that, it resurrects those feelings for them, and so for whatever reason they can't let it go.
Yeah. I know quite a few people who do get attached to materialistic things, but I noticed that I had clothes, back to the clothes. I noticed I had clothes that I didn't wear because I didn't want to get them dirty, or jewelry
Mm,
because I don't want to lose it or anything. And I was like, why do I have these things and not use them? So I finally pulled out one of my white robes from Victoria's Secret that I got like 7 years ago, and I've never used
mm,
it. And I put it on. I was like, "You know what? If it gets dirty, stained, it is what it is. At least I got to use it, or get rid of it," you know? And I started to wear jewelry, like, I put this, thing on. I kept this necklace that I got as a Christmas gift a long time ago, and I loved it, but I never wore it because, like, what if it gets broken and I lose it?
mhm.
It's happened before.
Right.
And I'm 37 years old, and I was like, "What am I doing?" So I
That's
started putting
awesome.
and I'm wearing them, and so hopefully I don't break them or lose them or stain them or do all this stuff, but it is gonna happen. But I mean, who else is gonna keep them? I'm just hoarding them for myself. So
Right,
that was
right. Well, that's great. I love that you started wearing especially the jewelry. I don't think that that's uncommon either. I think a lot of people, they have valuable jewelry and they keep it. Some people keep it in the bank, in a safe deposit box even, and like they may not even look at it. And it's just, well, I have to keep it safe. And I think some of that has to do with like, okay, I get it. Like it's an inheritance for somebody else, in certain circles. But I have especially a big item right now that always this reminds me of is China. People have their china, like back in the day when you got married, that was like a big thing. You got your china, and our society's evolving a little bit, and a lot of younger people are not getting china because they're like, I don't live like that. I don't serve like that. Like I don't have parties like that. Like that's not culturally like what I'm doing anymore. Socially, it's not what I'm doing, so they're not registering for China, and then when their parents are getting older, typically that's something that you pass down, and kids don't want it because they're like, I don't want it. I don't need it. I don't have a place to store it. I live in a small apartment. Like I don't want any of that. So China has become this trigger item because people are like, I spent so much money on this China. This was my grandmother's China. People have like their grandmother's China plus their own China, their mother's China. Like it's like might have multiple collections, and they're so pretty. I mean, I love it. I think it's really beautiful, but people are like, I don't know what to do with it, and then they try to sell it and it has no value. Very little value. Like no one really wants to buy it unless it's like a very rare kind of china, like really like China has almost no resale value right now. And so people don't know what to do with it. And I'm like, what you should do is take it out and use it every day. Like just start using it, and unless it's the kind of china that you can't put in the microwave because it sparks, like sometimes they have metal on them. But otherwise, I'm like, use it, enjoy it. Like drink your cup of coffee every morning out of the fanciest cup that you own. And like, why not? Because if you're not selling it, either you're getting rid of it or you're using it because it makes you happy. I mean, there must have been a reason why you got it in the first place because it made you happy. So you should take it out and use it. And I know a lot of people who've started doing that because they're like, I don't know what I'm saving it for. It used to be that you had to keep it protected because you were going to pass it to somebody else, or you maybe thought it was going to be valuable to sell. And actually, that's not the case. So now you just got to use it. And so I kind of always tell people, I'm like, get rid of your crappy everyday dishes that you got. Like, you don't even know where you got them, and use your china. So I'm trying to start that movement.
we had a Christmas, and I pulled out the china, like, cups for their wassail. I'm like, "Hey, perfect. I never use these cups. Perfect time to use these cups." But it's so true. We were actually having a conversation. One of my neighbors was jokingly kind of complaining about how the parents want them to get their china, and she was just like, "What am I gonna do with your china? Like, what am I gonna do? I don't use the china." So she was so against receiving this china from her parents, and I told her we didn't grow up with china, but my husband's mom had china from a different marriage, and then she ended up passing that from her mother-in-law to me, and so that's the china I have. But yeah, I mean,
Mhm.
their teas are so tiny that, that you can't ever get enough tea in it. You have to refill it, like, all.
It's true. Yeah, I know, I find that too with, like, old wine glasses. They're very small. I'm like, "Wow, they must have really just kinda sipped it, like, really little sips." It's so small.
Nowadays, it's like 5-ounce pour back a day. It was like 1 ounce
Yeah.
pour.
Exactly, yeah. There's also companies that take china and they make them into other things, like, if you wanna just keep a piece of the pattern just, like, for nostalgia, they'll drill a hole through it and they'll put, like, a stand on it so that you could use it to serve cookies, or they'll fill, the coffee cup or the teacup with wax and make a candle out of it and stuff like that, so there are other things too you could do to be a little bit creative just to, if you wanna keep a little bit for nostalgia.
Right, yeah. Alright. So, can you share a moment when a client's clutter clearly reflected a loss or tragedy they hadn't fully processed yet?
I mean, I have had clients whose children have called me and said, my dad died or my mom died, and the surviving parent, they need to clear out the stuff, which I'll just backtrack and say, like, I never think it's a good idea to get organizing for somebody else. Like, people try to buy gift certificates and stuff for me, and I just say, like, it's like getting someone a gift certificate for Weight Watchers. Like, they might wanna lose weight, but they don't want you to tell them that they should lose weight? And it's like with organizing, it's like they might wanna get organized, but they don't want you to tell them they need to get organized because it's kind of insulting. And so, like, calling me and telling me that your mom or your dad or your husband needs to get organized, they have to want it. They have to really be the one to say, like, "I'm ready to do this." And if they're not ready, it's not going to go very well. And so I had a child call me and say that her mother wanted to organize the house, and the father had just died. And so the mom kept canceling the appointment. She would make an appointment and then cancel it. And so I could see that she was already like not ready to receive me. And then when I was there and she showed me everything, I could see that she wasn't ready to clean out his closet or any of that. And I can't tell you when the right time is. It's just like you have to know when you're ready to do that. So um, the daughter was very upset because she said that I didn't help her mom. And I said, your mom's not ready to be helped. So I can't I can't force her to throw things away. Like, I mean, that's like, it would be even more traumatic than what she's already gone through. She was married for over 50 years. So definitely I see all the time where people are holding on to things and they're absolutely not ready to get rid of them. And I always say, like, call me when you're ready. There's no, I'm not going anywhere, so just call me. And sometimes people do. Like, a year will go by and someone will say, I'm actually finally ready to do this. So I think when someone dies, that's definitely the time where it's so tangible. You see, like, the grief is really like happening, right in front of you.
What does rebuilding actually look like after someone clears their space emotionally and not just physically?
Well, I will tell you, when I organize with somebody, that a lot of times people want before and after pictures. And depending on the client and like how bad things were before we get started, sometimes the after pictures look worse because when you take all the clutter away, you've revealed like a floor that's damaged, rugs that are stained, you pull away stuff and the walls are 2 different colors because the things that, n I deal with a lot of people who can't do basic repairs in their homes because, there's so much stuff there, and so walls are falling apart. um, there are bathrooms that are unusable because, they've been backed up, and you can't call a plumber because the plumber won't have access to even, like, do the repairs necessary, so they just live like that. I had someone call me recently who told me that she had not been using the bathroom in her apartment for several weeks because there was a clog, and she didn't have anyone who could come in because she was too embarrassed, and there was no impasse. So she was going to the gym to shower and use the bathroom. So, that is like really, um, physically, there's a huge physical difference that happens once we're done, and then emotionally, sometimes, I'll go into someone's house who has like multiple rooms. We'll clear the first room, and then I'll go back And how that room is when I go back is very indicative of where they are mentally. So if they're not really ready for this process, you'll see that they'll slide, which is like you'll open up the door and there'll be more stuff in that room again. And they'll just say, "Oh, well, I had to put a couple things in here because was moving stuff around." And I'm like, we worked so hard to clear this room and make it like look the way you wanted. And like, you know, if it's your office, we cleared out so that you could sit at your desk again and do your papers, and we cleared the floor so there's no tripping hazards. And then I come in and there's stuff back on the floor and the desk is covered again. And so you see that they're like emotionally not ready. And that's often people who are not in therapy. If I have a client who's seeing a therapist and I go and we clear out a room, I will find there's a much higher success rate when I return, that room is still exactly the way we left it, and they're so proud to show that to me. And you see like this like absolute empowerment and confidence that they have because they were able to like maintain the space, and they want to keep going because now they like how that feels. They like that they've like reconquered this problem that they have, and they see a way out. They see that it is possible to dig their way out of this with some help. And so just see that like it's like a light's gone off for them. It's like it's a huge transformation, and sometimes people were organized and they something happened, someone died, they got sick, life changes, there's so many life changes that can happen, and then they got down and they got stuck. And then you organize and you see as you're going through their stuff that there was a system, a filing system, labeling. You see labels in their pantry and you're like, oh, you did have a system. And they're just like, yeah, it just got away from me, and so we just want to get them back to where they are. And so you see like that they emotionally are like in a much better place. So it's like you see the physical transformation and then you see the emotional transformation. That's like really they go hand in hand.
So what happens to the people that you come back and there's like stuff on the floor, stuff on this desk? How do you move forward in that situation?
It depends. So sometimes, I like my inclination is like I want to start here again and say like, all right, well, do you want to revisit this? And sometimes they're not ready to do that. And there might be a very good reason why that happened. Like maybe they really did have to do something somewhere else and that this is the only clear space that they had. So I ask them, do you want to revisit this or do we want to move on to the next? And sometimes they'll say like, let's leave this for now and then we'll keep going. And then at the end, we'll end up circling back. And then they'll say like, "Okay, I'm ready to deal with this again." And then we'll tackle it again. So, I try not to get disheartened. And I always tell people when I come, I'm like, I'm not, sometimes we have to talk about why things are like this, like why did this happen? But I'm not here to be like, how could you let this happen? Like it happened, like there's a mess, we cleaned it up, I came back, it's back again. Um, how do you want to handle it? I'm not there to like chastise them, but I'm just there to like I'm there to help them. Like, and I get paid I get paid by my time. So how do you want me to spend my time? If you want me to keep repeating over and over again, we can do that if that's going to be helpful to you. I don't necessarily want to do that, but if maybe we need to revisit it right away and they say like, oh well, we threw out some things and I decided I still needed them or what, maybe there's a reason. And then, but otherwise, like usually we'll keep going and then we'll circle back. And a lot of times in the beginning, people are very reluctant to get rid of things. And then by the end, they're like, donate it. Like they get high on the feeling of like giving it away. And they're like, yes, this is going to be really good. And so, it changes even like in the moment. It could change session to session. It could change like hour to hour. So it just depends. But I try not to judge them too harshly when that happens because I feel like, people have their reasons and I'm just there to help them.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm curious, have you ever had someone who you've helped declutter, but they've kind of went back and
I'm sure it's happened because there are so many people who call me it's a very specific situation. So they've probably been engaging in this type of hoarding behavior for most of their lives. Maybe they learned it from their parents. They grew up like that. So it's going to take a really long process to undo those behaviors. And the reason why they're calling me is not because they've had an aha moment and they want to clear the clutter, it's because there is like electrical or water damage. Usually there's some kind of physical impetus, and a professional has come there and said, "I cannot do the work that you need me to do because of the amount of stuff you have here, and you need to clear this out in order for me to be able to work." I had a client who had an electrical situation, and the electrician said, "I need access to all the outlets, and I cannot do this work until you clear out some of the clutter." And so I was called in very specifically to help lighten up and create access to all these areas. And so we went room by room and we cleaned out so much, we got rid of so much. And she was thrilled and she was able to get the work done. But she said, "I need to take a break." And, I suspect, I don't know, but I do suspect that she probably went back to some of the old behavior again because, the need is no longer there. She had the work done. So I think that probably happens. It's like anything else, like people gain, they might lose a lot of weight and then it starts to creep again, like we people as individuals, we go through this, in so many different ways. So, if they will call me again, we'll start over again, you know, if they need the help.
Well, you seem like you're very empathetic towards the people that you are helping and that you actually care. So that's really really cool to see.
Thank you.
Have you ever seen someone's life shift in unexpected ways after they released clutter? Do you have anything that like kind of jumps out at you?
Yes. Yeah, one of my favorites was, a client who called me. She was dating a man, and she said that he wanted her to move in, and he was someone who had inherited his parents' home. They had been engaging in hoarding behavior, and they decided, which is I've heard this many times, they packed up a suitcase one day and said, "Son, we're leaving this all to you." And they have picked up and moved somewhere else and started over again and left the child in the house with all the stuff. And so they're sort of trapped. This is their home, this is the only home they've known, and they've only known it this way, and it's very hard for them to get rid of the stuff. So she called and said, "He wants me to move in and I just don't see how I can fit, like how can I live in this place like without any room for me?" And I said, I can't organize for someone who doesn't want my help. I'm like, if you want to have me come in and help you, I can do that, but I can't touch his stuff without his permission. And she said that, she was going to try to talk to him. And I said, what kind of stuff is it? And she, it was like all different kinds of, and he was a collector of like comic book memorabilia, comic books, different kinds of things like that. So, and, I said, like, and I said, like, I'm a very big fan of like, I love comics. Like I grew up on comics. So I'm like, I'm not gonna disrespect him or anything like that, like, I'm not gonna belittle his passion. We're just gonna have to find a better way, to organize it. And she's like, "Alright, well, I'll try to talk to him." But it never worked. And then I guess she moved in with him, and then she called me and said, "I'm living here, and I'm going absolutely crazy. You have to come here." And I was like, "Okay." And she's like, "I'm gonna hire you for me." He's given me 1 closet, so let's, like, organize my closet. And then she's kinda hoping, like, while I'm there, which is exactly what happened. While I was there, I like, there was stuff in the closet that belonged to him. And I said, "You said the closet was hers. These things are here. What do you want me to do with them?" And so then he had to kind of look and make a decision about stuff that was like, pretty old. And he was like, "Oh, just move it here, move it there. Okay, you can get rid of that." It was baby steps. So I met her like maybe once or twice. And then the third session, I showed up and he's like, "She forgot she had a doctor's appointment." And I was like, "Oh." And he's like, "So I figured I'll work with you." And I was like, "Okay." And then we started working in the dining room and we came up with all these like really creative ideas on how to like display the stuff that he had collected and to clear out the dining room. And she was like so thrilled. And we worked together for like, a year and a half, pretty regularly. And they made, at first it was really slow and then they made great progress. And I showed up one day and they were like, "We got engaged and we're going to get married this summer." And I was like, "Oh my gosh, I'm so happy." And then I moved away for a period of time, like a few years ago. I left the country with my family for like 2 years. And I said, "Do you need help while I'm gone?" And they're like, "No, we think we're in a good place." And And then when I came back, I reached out to them 2 years later and I just said, "Look, I'm back and I just wanted to check in and see how you guys are doing." And they're like, "We are," there was a room in the house that he wouldn't touch. It was called his library and it was filled with books. I mean, thousands of books, like floor to ceiling bookshelves. And the room was like, it was just like there's so much stuff in there. And she said, "We're cleaning out the library and we're donating all the books." And I was like, "Oh my gosh, what's happening?" And she's like, "We're adopting twin boys and we have to get the house ready for them to come." And I was like, "Oh my gosh." So, they were like such a happy ending for me because they had such a life transformation. And I don't want to say that it was like because of me, but definitely like the organizing was like part of their process of like working through a lot of their issues, and they were able to do it, and it was just fantastic, so,
Aw, that's amazing. That is so
yeah.
cool. Yeah, I love the soul process and how he did take baby steps and then eventually was cleansing, it seems like for both of them. So that's so cool. You had mentioned you moved away for 2 years out of the country. Could we get a little tidbit of a story there?
So when my husband and I were first married, we were in the Peace Corps, so that was without kids. We lived abroad for 2.5 years, and we moved back and then, kind of just, like, started our married lives over again. But then fast forward, in 2016, my husband was offered an opportunity to take a secondment from his job, and so he took a leave, and then he works for like a central bank, so we were invited to go to Switzerland for him to work for the Central Bank of Switzerland. So we moved there with our kids for 2 years from 2016 to 2018.
This was after you built your business and then you had to like leave it all behind and move. So how did that work
Yeah. So I started my business in 2013, and someone had told me I'm part of a national association of organizers, and I have a local group of organizers that I was meeting with once a month, and they had said when I started, they're like, "Don't be discouraged. It takes 6 months to get your first client, and it'll take 2 years for you to to be working steady." And I found that to be totally true. So I started in 2013, and in 2015 my business was like finally like full time. I was like really confident, really feeling good about everything. And then my husband, this opportunity came up, and we eventually like said yes, and we packed everything up and we moved. And so I stopped my website and I spoke to all my clients and I just like offered them, either a referral to another organizer, or a lot of them were like, "Oh, I'll wait till you get back. The mess isn't going anywhere. Ha ha ha." So I just like I picked up and left. And it was like there wasn't much to do except just like I just stopped working basically. And then I got to Switzerland, and my idea with Switzerland was that it's a very like orderly and neat place, and like they really don't need professional organizers there. So I figured I wouldn't be working anyway, certainly not with my own business. And so I spent a year kind of doing a lot of volunteering, through the schools and stuff and in the community. And then my daughter's tennis instructor found out what I did for a living. And she was like, "Organizing?" And she was like, "Oh my gosh, I need your help." And so she had me come to her house, and she had this garage. And it's not the Swiss that need help, but there's a lot of people in where we were living that were international people who had moved many times. Like there are people who like, every 2 to 3 years are moving, because of corporate relocation. And so they're often packing up boxes of stuff, moving to a new place, and that stuff is kind of getting like put into a storage or put into the garage or put into like a basement. And then they move again and they just take those boxes with them over and over again. And they have all the stuff they haven't even gone through for years. So all of a sudden, people started calling me and asking me to help them go through these boxes. And so I started working in Switzerland secretly because I wasn't really supposed to have my own business, but I started helping other expats, go through their stuff. So I did that for like, a little less than a year, and then by the time I was getting going, I was leaving to come back to the United States again. And then I came home and I had to start all over again. I called my old clients and I had to find new clients, and I built everything back up again, and I was like, "Okay, I'm in a really good place." And then COVID happened and I had to do it again. So, but every year I grow and get stronger. So it's been good.
That's so awesome. You got to live in Switzerland. What was that like?
It's beautiful. I mean, it is a really, really beautiful place. But anywhere that you move with 3 children, there's a lot of challenges, and someone said to me at one point, they're like, "You're only happy as your unhappiest child." And I was like, "That is true. If any of your children are going through, like, anxiety or bullying or, they're unhappy or they're sick, like, that is you can't enjoy anything because you are fixated on that." And so, I struggled a lot there because I kind of felt tremendous guilt about any unhappiness my children experienced because it was not their choice to move there. So I was really like very aware of that. But we got to travel a ton and it was really beautiful, positive family building experience. I was happy to come home. My kids were happy to come back to the United States. My husband probably would have stayed. he was he was really enjoying his life, but we came back, started again.
Was it because they wanted him back here and he had fulfilled it there in Switzerland?
My agreement when I went there, I was told that it was gonna be 2 years and that 2 years was contractual because he had to return to his old job. Apparently, there was more flexibility than he originally had thought once we got there, and so there was an opportunity to extend if we wanted to. My issue was that at the time, both sets of our parents were still alive. His dad was ill, and my mother was also starting to exhibit signs of like, she was declining. And I kind of felt like I didn't want to be on the other side of the ocean if things started to go badly. And I wanted my children to have the benefit of knowing all of their grandparents, as long as we could. And so I felt like once the 2 years was up, I was ready to come back. And I was like, that's kind of what I had mentally agreed to, and I don't know if I can keep going. And so, that I felt strongly about coming back, but yeah, there was some wiggle room to change that, but I didn't really want to.
Compromise. Love it.
Yeah, it's an important part of marriage.
Yes. For someone listening who feels overwhelmed and frozen by their space, what is one small, compassionate place to start?
Well, I always tell people, like, I do a lot of presenting on organizing, like, at local libraries because I kinda understand that not everyone can afford to hire someone to help them. People often, like, they have to do it on their own for whatever reason, and so I try to do, like, a presentation where I do tips and tricks on how to get organized. And the first thing I say is, um, make an appointment with yourself. Like, if you had to go to the doctor, you would carve out the time. So do that. And it doesn't have to be a very long amount of time because when I work with someone professionally, we only work at maximum usually 4 hours at a time. That's about as much as people can do before they just kind of like it's a lot of decision making. Even if you're physically not doing anything, it's a lot of decision making. So carve out a reasonable amount of time that you can handle. And don't pick a time that's like unreasonable for you. If you're someone who like doesn't like to get up early in the morning, don't say like I'm going to organize on Saturday at 7 o'clock in the morning because you know that that's never going to happen. Like set yourself up for success. So set yourself up, carve out the time, 4 hours at a time where like eat breakfast, have a cup of coffee, dive in, play music, and I work like a clock around the room. So like start on one corner and then start going around and take everything out. People don't want to. Take everything out, assess it, be a little bit critical, and then put it back. And set the clock for an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, whatever you think that you can sustain. And pick an area and like try to get that area done. Try to push through. Like if it's your desk, try to take everything off your desk, go through it, make a to-do list, organize it, and put it back. I mean, there's so many videos to help you. Like, how do you like to organize your paper? How do you like to organize your office supplies? Use those resources, but like be kind to yourself and don't say, like, I'm going to organize for 8 hours on Saturday. No one's ever going to organize for 8 hours on Saturday. Do a little bit at a time. And then my trick, if I showed you my desk right now, I have like a pile of papers on it. And sometimes, like, you look at that pile of papers and you're just like, I can't deal with this pile of papers. My trick is take the pile of papers, go underneath, pick it up, and take the thing on the bottom, one piece of paper from the bottom, and take it out and look at it. If the pile has been there for a while, that piece of paper, 50% of the time, is already irrelevant. So you can probably discard it. You can either throw it out or recycle it or shred it or whatever you need to do. But sometimes that helps you get over the mental block of I have this pile of papers, and a pile of papers represents so much action that needs to be done. And so sometimes it's nice to pick it up and go underneath and take one piece out and say, I don't have to do any action. I can actually just throw this away. And every time you walk by the pile, just take one piece from the bottom. And then sometimes like you'll see like, okay, I'm just going to tackle this, and then it gives you a little bit of confidence to go after it. So that's my one little piece of advice. Make an appointment with yourself at a time that's comfortable for you. Set a timer and try to pick something that's actionable for you to do.
That's great, great advice. I love that. I need to do that when it comes to filing. I don't like filing.
Mm, yeah,
It's for
filing it can be tough. It can be boring. I say play music, even put a movie on, like on your phone or something, like make it fun. And also filing, people don't like to file, especially if the filing cabinet is tight and squishy. Like if you open up your filing cabinet and you have to put a piece of paper in and it's like it's really full, it's not fun. So I would say like if people are struggling with filing and it's because the cabinet's too full, maybe try to do a purge because the best filing is when the cabinet's all loosey goosey and you can like run your fingers back and forth and they slide, and then you can just drop the paper in really quickly. Then that makes filing really easy. So if you need to purge before you file.
amen to that. We did that. 'Cause I had to do that, and when we lived in the Midwest and we moved here, I was like, "No, I need you to get here because you also, like, throw the stuff in the office, and I have to file it." It's a two-person job, so we moved here. We both kind of tackled it together, so that was really helpful. So now it's, like, loosey-goosey, but there's a pile still left that needs to be taken care of, so we got most of the piles.
Well, I am confident you could do it.
Yeah. All right. So when someone is finally in the black again, what does that look like? Not in perfection, but in peace.
They know where the stuff that they need is. It doesn't have to be beautiful, but like if you can get to the things that you need in a safe way, then that's great. If you're happy when you come home and you're happy and you're comfortable in your space and you're safe in the space, I think that's a great place to be.
I love that. It is so true. When I get my closet organized or the filing cabinet or anything, I mean, it's such a you can breathe. It's such a weight lifted. You just feel like you can think clearly a lot better. You can feel more energized. It's just so funny how it all kind of blends together and works together and enhances everything. So,
Absolutely.
final question. Where can our listeners find you?
So I'm here in Long Island, New York, and I have a website, stowandbehold.com. I also have my Stow and Behold Facebook page, and I'm on Instagram. I think I'm on X, Twitter still. There's a feed there somewhere, and I'm on LinkedIn as well. So all those places you can find me, and there are some YouTube videos with me giving some tips and tricks here and there as well.
Awesome. I will tag those in the description. And is there something that I did not get to ask or think of asking that you would like to share with our audience?
No, I mean we covered so much. I think I will say like my favorite client is someone who's just kind of like willing to listen a little bit. Sometimes people come in there with their preconceived notions, and sometimes like when someone is like a little bit like, okay, well, why don't you tell me what you think, and then I'll propose something, and they'll be like, okay, let's try it, and it works. It's like that's the best. So just being a little bit open and flexible sometimes makes all the difference.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for coming on our podcast. I enjoyed talking to you and learning that you can make a career out of organizing. I had no idea. I mean, I thought maybe like in the TV shows, but that was like a specific niche, I guess, if you will. But not
Mm,
that there was like a community and like so many organizers that get together and like share and how you guys can, be full time after 2 years and are doing this. So that's really, really amazing. And you're changing lives in so many different ways, emotionally, spiritually, physically. So that's really, really, really amazing what you're doing. And I just never thought to think, that's another way to help someone. So that's so cool that you've gone down this road.
thank you. Thanks so much for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you for being here. If something you heard today moved you, share it with someone you love. And don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode. You can follow me on Instagram at In the Black Passion Project for more behind the scenes and guest spotlights. And remember, no matter where you've been, you're not behind. You're becoming. Stay in the black.